Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lunch for the Soul. My name is Melissa Wilson with Fox 26 News in Houston. I'm typically a morning anchor for Fox during the weekdays and then also a medical reporter. And I love this time where we can just share our faith, learn all kinds of positive things about people in our community. Today's going to be a little different. I often do medical miracles. Perhaps somebody was on the brink of death and they got a second chance, and their faith helped get them through that tough time. Right now, I'm about to introduce you to an incredibly inspirational woman who wants to help inspire all of us to be stronger leaders, to help lead us through that faith and to make it happen. So without further ado, let's bring in Dr. Cindy Trimm. Hello, welcome to
Hey there. Hey there.
Glad you're here.
It's just so amazing to be in this city and to be a part of what's going on. And this is probably one of my favorite cities in the world. I love it.
Oh, I love to hear you be able to say that, and I can't agree more. I've been here almost 25 years, and it is the best city in the country. Thank you very much. Hey, I want to make sure I introduce you to everybody. You're with Kingdom School of Ministry, and you are doing some powerful things, and you have a huge event coming up, and that's why we're talking, because this weekend it's going to get underway. But first of all, tell us what your organization is and how it came about in the first place.
Yeah, I have actually left politics many years ago, and I wanted to contribute to us navigating the way forward, not just from our places of employment, but from our places of faith. And I developed Kingdom School of Ministry to contribute to raising up the next leaders that will become difference makers. And it started maybe 32, 33 years ago, and it still continues today. And we have our summer intensive, and this year is in Houston, Texas. And it just started as an idea, a desire to make a difference.
Yeah, and we just take a look in the past of people who come. I mean, you get huge crowds here, which is so exciting to be able to see. You mentioned your history and politics here. We see with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. So it looks like you still have the support of pretty big leaders as well, right?
Yes, I do. We started here in the United States of America, and it went to Canada, and then Africa and the Caribbean. So we've done our schools of intensive pretty much all over the world. And last year we came to Houston, absolutely fell in love with the city. I've been coming back and forth to Houston for the last maybe 18 to 20 years.
My,
And it was just a pleasure to be here. And one of my favorite restaurants are here as well.
oh,
I,
that's even
I'm
better to
in
hear.
love with char grilled oysters. And so any
Oh, yeah.
opportunity for me to come here, not just to minister and undergird, but
Yeah.
also to eat. My husband calls me a foodie, and it's true.
Oh, I love that. What a fun nickname. Hey, let's talk about what your mission is, because it's a really important one. How can people get on board, and how can you help them with that mission?
Yeah, my greatest mission, my greatest drive, my greatest passion is to create cultures of empowerment, communities that thrive, and nations that prosper. And I ask myself the philosophical as well as spiritual question: how do nations prosper? And they prosper through their workforce, through their citizenry. And a country is only as powerful, it's only as prosperous, progressive, and and um, and successful as its empowered citizens. And so I'm in the empowerment space, and bringing just spiritual, everyday, practical principles to bear on how people show up, how they show up in their lives, how they show up in their families, and how they show up in the workplace. And we're using kingdom principles, which is principles of empowerment that gives meaning, hope, dignity, and purpose to all humanity. And if we show up better, we can make the world a better place.
Yeah, and we all need those things in our lives, right? And I feel like it seems like life is just so busy and we get caught up in it, and you can lose sight of those things pretty easily. Do you see that a
Yeah.
lot from people you talk about when you're
Yeah.
doing huge programs?
Yeah, absolutely. What really does matter in life, what really matters is our relationship with God, but also our relationship with one another. We live in such a fragile ecosystem, and what I do affects everyone. It's like dropping, just a little drop of water into the ocean and thinking that, oh, my little drop doesn't change anything, but it changes everything. We live in a time where a lot of people are suffering from possibility blindness. And if we can give them a vision larger than the one that they have for themselves, we can give people hope, and they have the ability to dream again and to believe again. And I think God has a vision for all of our lives. And if we can share that through biblical principles, I think that people could find their way back to purpose. And that's what we hope to bring about in the lives of those that are attending.
Yeah. And then you're going to have, I understand, 8 powerful courses that are underway. How does that work? And how do you change those to be able to help people throughout the week?
Well, it's very exciting to be able to take 8 months and then collapse it into 7 days, plus
Yeah.
they take exams. So we broken the day up. Usually they take 2 courses every single day, and it's intensive. They get the full range from understanding the kingdom, what the kingdom is all about, the purpose of the church. We talk about health and hospitality, even from the perspective of being in business or being in a arena or a discipline or a field that requires customer service. So we take health and hospitality, we make it practical. Then
Mhm.
we talk to them about prophets and prophecy. We talk to them about kingdom economics, biblical finances, which is a huge conversation. What
Mhm.
does God say about? And we talk to them about a series of others: praise and worship, prayer and spiritual warfare. People want to know what they can about
Yeah.
how do you pray, how do you get your breakthrough, how do you pray for your family, and then how to maintain a life of gratitude in the midst of the struggle. How do you maintain a life of gratitude?
Yeah, and how do you? What do you teach them? Because that's hard sometimes, especially if you're going through something
Yeah.
tough. It's hard to be grateful, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I just had a friend that's burying her husband, and then even in my own life, I'm standing here, and I got news about a very serious disaster that has just happened in my family. So, how do you process life without gulping at it? And is there a panacea? And one of the things that gives me hope is God's original plan and purpose. And it's summed up. I wished above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. And so once you understand that the word of God is there for life strategy, Jesus came that we may have life and have it more abundantly. So he's going to give you a strategy. A strategy is attached to an outcome. And he has a strategy for everything: a strategy for overcoming grief, a strategy for dealing with sickness and illness, a strategy for overcoming divorce. The Bible is a book of solutions. And if we see it as the answers that we need, and what we really need is life strategies. And that's what the Bible
Mm.
gives us.
Yeah.
And in the midst of everything, we can find a place of gratitude. We're alive, we still have breath. And as long as you have breath, there is hope for the future.
Yeah. And Dr. Trim, what I hear when I'm picturing you talking about you having these group meetings and we see everybody lined up, it almost sounds like you are going to be doing some soul searching to figure these things out. Do you break into small groups and talk about those
Yeah.
things, or how does that work?
Yes, we do. And the small groups help us to digest concepts.
Hmm.
Like I said, it's coming at you fast. There's a lot of concepts.
Hmm.
And I often say if your context is wrong, your your conclusion is going to be wrong.
Yep.
So we break up into groups, we talk about concepts, and we help people to articulate what they've just learned and use one another like a mastermind so that they can hear themselves as to how they're digesting the information that they're receiving. So we have groups, breakout groups. We have scripture memorization. We have group times where, say, for instance, in Kingdom Economics, Biblical Finances, one of the fun things is that we create a business. We literally create businesses, we name businesses, and we do it right there. So it's not just getting concepts, it's practicalizing so that when people leave after a week, they have something that they can say, okay, this is how you
Yeah.
apply this truth.
That is so empowering. I feel like it just seems incredible. And you're it sounds like you're just really helping people live up to the potential that they have. It's almost right there. They're just not quite getting to where they want to be perhaps in life.
That's true. And sometimes it's just a matter of understanding. Because
Mhm.
if you can understand kingdom concepts or even biblical concepts,
Mhm.
if you can understand what it means to love your neighbor, but also love them that hate you, if you can understand what that means, if you can understand forgiveness, and what it means to forgive. One of the things that Mandela said is when you have unforgiveness and you wish your enemy evil, it's like drinking poison and hoping that your enemy will die.
Yeah.
And so, it's helping people to understand why. And
Mhm.
really, life is hard, and there are so many principles to digest. But the scripture says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." The
Mhm.
truth about God, the truth about purpose, the truth about your identity, the truth about your reason why. We want to know the truth.
Mhm.
The truth is that God is extending his kingdom here on earth, and we become the hands, we become the heart of God in our society and in our community. And each one of us, we carry a part of the solution.
Mhm. And it can be really hard to become a leader or to live up to your full potential if you have some of those problems in your heart that you mentioned, and they're the hardest ones to deal with. It's that the anger, the resentment if you haven't forgiven somebody, and saying I'm sorry. I mean, those are the biggest things I feel like really mess up relationships and end up being the person who's upset, it ends up hurting them worse than the other person, right? So do you give keys and help people work through that so that they can figure out a way to get to the other side?
Absolutely. When we scale back, we start with understanding the kingdom.
Mhm,
And the Bible said God gives you keys of the kingdom. And you say, okay, what are these keys? They're biblical principles. And what is a biblical principle? It's a life strategy.
mhm,
So again, a strategy is attached to an outcome. We have an aspiration, a goal, and a dream. And what gets us from point A to point B is strategy. And I believe that Christianity is my life strategy.
yeah,
We've got 66 books of the Bible filled with nothing but wisdom. And so if we can get
mhm,
through life, we get it through with the wisdom of God. And how does that happen? It's not just data driven information. Data driven information gives you just information. But wisdom is different from just information. Wisdom is applicable truths,
mhm,
and if we can apply it to our lives, and sometimes we just need a coach, a teacher, a
mhm,
mentor that will be able to say, okay, this is
yeah,
what this means, but this is how you apply it. I
yeah,
remember when I first got saved, everything was Greek. It was just going over my head. I didn't have a context. I didn't know what they were talking about. But now, I get an opportunity. Someone discipled me, and I get the opportunity to pay it forward, to
mhm.
be able to say, okay, here's the biblical context, here's the interpretation, and here's how you can apply it.
When I see that you're looking for people to get on board and to come and learn more from you, in this new, I guess, era of hope, so to speak, it seems like a lot of people are on the brink right there looking for that next step in their life, looking for hope, right? And is that who you find is really showing up and making a difference through these classes?
Yeah, a lot of leaders show up. So they're industry leaders, business owners, they are professionals, and they need just articulation of what is going on with me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And can you articulate it? So when we can take them to the Bible and we can show them that your greatest service to God is service to humanity. And God plants you where He can use you the most, where your gifts, your
Yes.
talent, your ability, your passion brings about the solution to world problems. And they
Mhm.
could be as little as empowering a single parent to understand it may not be the big things, but if
Mhm.
you can parent this child and raise them to be happy, healthy, contributing members of
Mhm.
society, they may not even know your name.
Yeah.
But because you have contributed to presenting to them in their adulthood a child that is moral and ethical, who
Mhm.
knows who they are, why they are, and is fulfilling their purpose, you've done a great job. We don't know who Albert Einstein's mother was, but I say she did a great job. So, from single parents to even presidents of countries or companies, and we have done it all. We have impacted people from all walks of life, from all kinds of disciplines, to be able to say, look, show up powerfully, own your space, know that God didn't make a mistake with you. You can overcome any obstacle. And just being yourself and showing up and owning your identity and showing up knowing that God has a place for you, a race for you, a grace for you. And it is your duty to find out what that is, because when you do, you inevitably make this world a better place just by being you, let alone doing something. And I think that we do more because we want to be more.
Yeah.
So it starts with being, knowing who you are, your
Mhm.
identity, who you are in Christ. And if you can own that space with faith and courage, then automatically this world will become a better place.
Yeah, it will, and when you talk about the fact that you have a lot of leaders who are there with you, are they in a space where they know and feel their purpose and why they were created, or does this help even a leader who is in a really firm position learn as well?
Yeah, again, we're in the new normal. And this is not the first time this has happened on planet Earth. I
Mhm.
could scale all the way back to the Garden of Eden, where there had to be a hard reset with Adam and Eve. What do? We're out of this optimum environment, and
Mhm.
now there's thorns and thistles and lions and bears that we got to fight. And how do we deal with this new normal? And we call that a paradigm shift. And once we can scale back to know that when Jesus came, He said, I came to seek and to save that which was lost. Not just who, but that. And we lost our ability to show up as God's representative. And through this, we're able to restore an understanding of who we are as human beings, to be able to answer the question, what does it mean to be human? And once we have that answer, I always say to people, just take ownership. What's right with the world? Me. What's wrong with the world? Me. And when I adjust how I live my life and how I approach things that are happening around me,
Mhm.
and once I do more than just pray, once I have the courage to see myself as the answer to prayer, then I can become a catalyst through which God can, use me to
Mhm.
bring those solutions to the table.
Mhm. Let's talk about who you're looking for. I understand really, I mean, anybody over this age of 17, so basically adults who are ready to sharpen those leadership skills and make a difference and who have that faith that they can pull that off would be ideal candidate to come join
Yes,
you.
yes. We have that big word, influencers, right? So
Yes.
everybody's looking for influencers. And that's what a leader is. A
Mhm.
leader is nothing more, nothing less than an influencer. And all of us are influencing something or someone.
Mhm.
It could be our child, it could be our friend. We're all influencers. What if we could just embody that and do that consciously? To be able to say, okay, I'm going to influence positive change.
Mhm.
And rather than being spectators, waiting for things to happen, what if we had the faith in God and the courage to do more than just spectate? What if we can be participators and play full out? And what if we can show up in the workplace, whether you're an entrepreneur or intrapreneur,
Hmm.
whether you're entry level or whether you're CEO or you're involved in corporate governance. And what if we can build those cultures of empowerment in our leadership, whether it's home or whether it's in the workplace? I remember the reason why I have strength of character because my mother influenced me as a single parent raising 7 children. And she created an environment where we understood cause and effect, and we took responsibility for our behavior, where she set the standard, where she began to enforce in us the need to set healthy boundaries, the need to love, the need to give back to society. I grew up in abject poverty. But my mother influenced us by saying you are not a beggar and you do have to give back to society. And you may not have money, you may not have clothes, but you got your personality, you got your hands, you got your feet, and
Yeah.
you can make a difference. And she insisted, you're going to go to Sunday school. And she insisted, you're going to give back to community, do something. So I ended up being very, very young, living in abject poverty, but still giving back to society, still volunteering, still being a part of making something happen. So we all have something to give to our community, to the world, to our society, even if it's the gift of presence or the gift of prayer. So even if you're not physically out there, we can pray.
Hmm. Hmm. I love hearing that. You were very uplifting, that's for sure. Now, so if somebody missed obviously your huge event this week, how can they get involved in future ones?
Yeah, we have online KSM online.
Hmm.
KSM is a part of what we offer for Trimm Institute for Global Leadership. So, we have workforce deficits, we have deficits in every industry. I think what we're looking for is the way forward. And
Hmm.
you have the way forward through leadership. And we are all lights. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good work and glorify your Father
Hmm.
which is in heaven. So, we could show up differently when we understand that
Yeah.
God has a purpose for everything under the heaven. He has a purpose for the ant. He has a purpose for the cockroach. It's a carnivore and it eats dead stuff. Without the cockroach, it will be just piling up. But listen to this. He has a purpose for the poop from the cockroach because
Really?
because it fertilizes the earth, doesn't it? The
I guess
cockroach
so.
poop is
I guess
fertilization.
so.
So if God has a purpose for a cockroach and its poop, God has a purpose for every person, every human being. There's a purpose.
It's interesting you say that because it really hits home with me because everybody who knows me knows I love snakes, I love reptiles, I love gators, like you name it, I love it. The only thing in this life I cannot handle are rats and roaches.
It
So
is
usually roaches,
interesting,
I
right?
instantly get chills. I'm so scared of them, which is
I,
ridiculous.
I
But they have a
knew.
purpose. I'm going to remember that. Thank you
Yeah,
for
everything.
sharing that.
Yeah. And God is a very detailed God. And everything about us,
Hmm.
we right now everybody talks about aggression.
Hmm.
But the worst form of microaggression is for any human being to ignore their own greatness.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we all are a masterpiece of God because each one of us are a piece of the master. And if
I
we
love
could
talking to
show
you.
up and if we could own that reality,
Yeah.
we all have a purpose. And if you don't mind, I'll just share one story
Hmm.
about
Please
this
do.
young boy. He shared it with me and he said to me, I used to laugh at individuals that had learning disabilities or any kind of disability when I was young. And then he said, I had a heart attack. And they managed to give me a heart of someone that had passed away. And she was a young girl, and she had a learning disability, and she had an intellectual disability, and her mother used to cry and say, "What is the purpose of my daughter? She can't learn. She can't think on her own. And you made a mistake with my daughter." But one day her daughter was eating bread and she kept stuffing it into her mouth, and she had no one to supervise her, and she didn't know to stop, and she asphyxiated. And do you not know that the mother of that child that had passed away visited the young boy that had the heart transplant, laid on his chest and cried and said, "Now I know the purpose for my daughter."
Wow.
So no one lives without purpose. We may not know it, but God
Mhm.
has a purpose and a plan for each one of us.
Mhm.
And neither of us are mistakes. And no matter how you were born, God has a plan and God has a purpose for each one of us. And if we can hang on to that, all of a sudden we can make sense out of something that does not make sense. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm here to help people to know that they have purpose and to discover what their purpose is. And that's my purpose for being here.
You have a beautiful purpose, and I can feel you making a huge difference. I guess my last question for you is, as I take a look at you with the crowd, and you're talking to them, and you're interacting with them. What is the difference you see as the speaker, as the leader, that from the moment that you start to the end of your conferences? What's the difference in the field? Do you see a difference in perhaps the way
So,
they're sitting, or their openness, or their
so
hope in
different.
their eyes?
It's like an overnight,
Yeah.
overnight success because I know what it feels like to sit there,
Mhm.
filled with potential.
Mhm.
And I know what it means to say or to hear, "I see you." So when they can get that feeling and when they can embody it, and when
Mhm.
they can walk away with being seen, not just heard, but being
Mhm.
seen, and know that, okay, she's standing there not for me to admire her, but
Mhm.
for me to admire who God has made me. Listen, there is a difference. There's nothing like it. I see them when they start. Some people are dejected. Some people have questions. Some people have been through a war zone in their life. And to
Yeah.
see those same people overnight, literally the next day, their lives changing, and they're speaking and they're seeing and they're contributing, and they're uplifted. To see that happen,
Mhm.
to see
Mhm.
God make a difference, I mean, that's the greatest high. And my greatest joy is to be used by God to serve humanity. That's my greatest joy. And that's what I'm here to do so that people discover who they really are. They discover their greatness. And all of the people around them that they admire, they can say, "I can ascend into realms of greatness too, because God has a place for me, has a space for me, has a race for me, He has a grace for me. And I can make a difference, not only in my family's life, but I can make a difference in this world." I mean, that's the greatest joy, to know that God is using me to
Yeah.
connect people, not only with Him, but to connect people with their greatness, that, they can go to a place in themselves to
Mhm.
discover themselves.
Mhm.
They
Well,
can
that's it.
collide with God.
Yeah.
And when they collide with God, they collide with their own greatness.
Well, I feel so honored to learn more about Kingdom School of Ministry and all that you're doing. Dr. Cindy Trimm, thank you for taking time to talk to us today. You're just an unbelievable go-getter, and you touch my heart, and I know you will many. So thank you again.
And thank you for having me.
All right. Take care
All
of
right,
you.
God bless.
God bless you. And thank you all for joining us here on Lunch for the Soul. I just want to remind you, maybe you joined us late today, or maybe you want to see other Lunch for the Souls. It's easy to do. You can go to our Fox 26 webpage, fox26houston.com. You can go to our YouTube, or you can also go to our Fox Local app. It's free for your smart TV. You can stream it on your huge screen and having to watch it on your phone or your computer. Again, that's Fox Local. Thanks for being here. I hope to see you back here next time. You know where we are. It's always Wednesdays and Saturdays at 11:30 a.m. See you next time.